Do not come into this business if you're not willing to just be driven, because my phone doesn't ring, I make it ring. That's kind of how we make anything happen, and you just got to get out and hustle. That's the other word. It's either self-motivated or hustle.
Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by the Nashville AIMP Pubcast. I'm your host, Michael McAnally-Baum. I'm the secretary of the Nashville Association of Independent Music Publishers. I'm the president of Smack Songs. On today's Pubcast, we're talking to Parallel Entertainment's Tim Hunze. Tim heads up Parallel Music Publishing's Nashville office. He's a board member of the Nashville AIMP. He's a great hang. He offers us a lot of insight into his unique publishing experience.
My original job, to give a little history of myself, I started in a tape room of a company called Great Cumberland Music at the time. It was at the time had been a partnership with Jimmy Bowen and Bill Ham. And Bill Ham ended up buying Jimmy out, and so that helped me because everybody left, so I got a job in the tape room. And Bill Ham, for those that don't know, recently passed away, was the manager, producer, and publisher of ZZ Top. That's how most people, he's a Texas icon and music business icon.
He did it all.
But I learned a lot from him, and he was always involved on the artist development side from day one of my becoming into the music business, so I've always had a love for that. I also used to be a drummer. So I kind of got in trying to be a rock star. That didn't really happen. So here I am on this side of the fence.
Managing songwriters.
Yeah, but I was always the one that was always driven that, it's fun playing in the garage, but what do you do then? Well, you go get a gig. How do you do that? You start calling people. So I've always been that guy. I'm a little self-motivated, I guess, is the word I'd use.
What comes up a lot, too, is in the hustle and in interviews we've had, too, is about the publishing business being a relationship business.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's it. I was so lucky to have people, for me at the time, like Pat Higdon's one. Like, even when I was a young tape room guy, he was always very respectful. Tim Dubois ran Arista Records. He would always stop by, say hi, remember my name. That meant the world to me when I was first coming in. And so these are the guys I would lean on, or Gary Overton was one. He was running EMI at the time, and he didn't need to, hang out with me, junior little Tim that didn't know anything. But anytime I ever called him, he'd call me back and answer any question I had. So, but I always was intentful on those relationships because those guys are real busy. But so I believe in mentoring on that, but also with young writers because, people like BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, NSAI send young people my way. Say, hey, listen. If you're cool and you approach me the right way and we have a good hang and I say, hey, bring me some more songs, I genuinely mean that. I will tell you if I don't want to hear any more. Typically, I try to be nice. But I have a lot on my plate. I have my writers I take care of. But if I invite you back, don't abuse it. Be cool with that. And just because I don't immediately dig you and jump on, that doesn't mean I might not like what you're doing. I think I've mentioned to you before prior to the recording that I date songwriters, and I know it sounds weird, but I have to get to know you and your personality. We're going to hang out some. And one great example, because one of my writers, Lance Carpenter, actually, he came to me from an NSAI referral, and he was always really cool. He only hit me up and would only come play a few songs, and he makes mention of that. How we got together was he's actually part of a smaller company that my old boss, Jeff Carlton, was running, and we bought that company. And then he became into my office, and now we work together. But it's been this great relationship, and he was always so good about hanging. He brings that up, that was cool, that I would just hang out and listen to his songs, helped him be better, and now we get to work together. If he'd have been a jerk, and then I probably wouldn't have picked him up, or vice versa. So I always say treat relationships with respect and try to gain, some knowledge in that.
Well, I'm glad Lance did that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Kelsey's Love You Like You Mean It.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's fun how that works.
I think, too, you said this, is how I'm always so surprised by how inviting the Nashville community is. I'm 5 years in here in Nashville, and I really felt like people were always willing to at least know me, and then it was on my merits beyond that. Trying to...
We'll open the door, but like you said, it's like, merits or your intent or whatever, then you have to bring something as well. It's not a one-sided relationship, obviously, but like I said, I love meeting people. It's just it's super important to me. On the way up, I got to meet people ahead of me. On where I'm at currently, I don't know where you call me currently, but I love to just meet them all. And from the person in the tape room to the receptionist, because I was treated so well, I make it a point to know everybody, and I enjoy that. So, but yeah, the welcoming environment. So that goes into, sometimes you get that one chance. So what do you do with that one chance? See, I reverse that. Like, what do you do? And because people always ask, how do I get to you? Or how do I get this dropped off? Or how do I get in the door? And personally, for me, it just starts off with being just a cool person. I don't know how better to describe it, because I answer my phones at my office, and when Mary Kate's not around, I do kind of disguise my voice a little bit. But they're like, hey, do you take unsolicited tapes or CDs? Well, I even said that like I'm old, man. I said tapes and CDs. Nobody sends me tapes. Right. I did get one cassette
But if
recently.
you did have a tape, CD, or cassette,
usually a song, or hey, can I play a song?
Tim will take it.
I will sit there and listen, and depending on the vibe of the gut, I go with my gut. I might say, you know what, send it to me. I'll check it out. And I definitely listen to everything. I can't say, I'll probably say I listen to 95% of everything.
Yeah.
It's impossible to hear all of it.
You said too, pre-interview, that really you rely on your gut when it's coming to new songwriters or new opportunities. Is there any way you could describe what that feeling's like when you get somebody and you're like, this is something I can see a future with?
It's a funny thing, man. It's kind of like love, or one of those things that's hard to describe the actual emotion you feel. But best served one time, again, I'll probably mention a lot of my mentors, because that's where I learned a lot. Jeff Carlton, when I was working with him one time, put it succinctly to me. Because I remember asking him about a young artist we were working with, and I just looked at him because I was curious. I really liked her at the time, but I was like, what do you see? Because it was really raw. And he goes, I just think they have something to say. And that's always just really dawned on me. And I've used that as a bar for a lot of things. So when people ask me, I'm like, I can see that. It's either that where you know that person, because I know you're close with like Brandy Clark. She's one of those. She just, you know that she has something to say. She's a truth teller. You know, you got that side. And it usually comes on the artist side for me. And then on the other side, like I remember the first time I heard some work tapes got dropped off. Young writer at the time. He was at Sony Tree and was losing his deal. And it was just a random CD drop off, actually. And his name was Bobby Pinson. And I just remember there was just a way, a few lines in some of his songs where he turned phrases and he said it like no one else. And I knew it had to be him. You know, you never know sometimes who the writer is on a song, but when you're listening through until you get to know him. And I remember sitting with the company at the time, and I played it and it created me, and everybody's like, oh yeah, there's something unique there. And so that gets me too. If I see it, and it was raw then, but he was always great and still is to this day. So always hard to put in words when you're talking about your gut, but those are two things where I know without any doubt that you have some way to say something differently, or you really have something to say, and you can see that you'll be that storyteller. Those are two. Melodies get me too, but on a gut level, that's what I go with.
Well, on the same kind of line of questioning, like, how does your gut affect you when a new publisher, somebody who's like new and not as experienced as you, come to town, they say, I have this roster of great writers, and I'd love to see if there's a way we could collaborate?
Well, if they're out of town, look, as I said, I'm generally fairly inviting, and I will sit down with anybody because I have had doors open to me, and I try to be good to the community that way. It can be challenging because if I'm being really honest, as brutal as it sounds, on all the outside material, if I ever, because I've been asked this, of all the random stuff that shows up in the mail, not necessarily referred, but straight up out of the mail, has there been anything that I've liked? One time.
Yeah,
One time I've done something. So that's not to be discouraging, by the way, to all those people listening to this. But if you're going to want to do this stuff, you need to be in town. You got to come to town. You go through the channels, you learn. And that's where the gravy starts rising. So when I say referred, that's coming from even NSAI, CSAC, BMI, lawyers, friends. Other publishers have called me up over the years, go, hey, I heard this guy. I can't do anything with it. You might like him. So you mentioned though publishers as a whole. I do encourage you to get out and try and knock on doors. I've had a lot more of that recently with Canadian artists and managers and publishers from up there coming in. And so I'll sit down and listen to their roster and see what you can put together. Like I said, my roster is mostly developing. I have, probably about a top third of it have been around and have had hits, but the rest I'm trying to get to that level. So I tend to be more open with that. depending on the levels you're at, you're saying no more than yes. So I'm kind of down there with some of the people trying to rebuild the company.
Let's talk about you pitching songs in this current environment. Like, give me a recent example of a song you're proud of, like kind of a life of the song from when you got it in your hands through it getting recorded or not getting recorded, finding a home.
Yeah, there's a couple avenues on that one, I guess. But one of them that I remember was a pitch. It's a song called Kiss You in the Morning. It was Michael Ray's first single.
Yes.
Yeah, that was, I believe Keith and Melton originally pitched it to Rebecca over at the label. And they put it on hold, and then they passed on it. We knew when it came in it was hooky. It's Michael White and Justin Wilson wrote it. So from work tape, it was super catchy. And I was like, all right, this is a really good song. And the demo rocked, so you know how you get excited. And it had a lot of holds, but then it came off, Michael, and then passed on it. But they got really close to cutting the last round for the sessions for his first record. And I think we tag teams. We do that sometimes. I think Keith and they called me, and we went back at Rebecca with him like, man, this is a hit. Are you sure? And she really was such a great, I'll give it to her. She led, you know what? You guys are right.
Rebecca A&R at Warner?
Yeah.
Yep.
Gordon now, Rebecca Gordon, who's now at Resonant Publishing. It's a wheels turn, you know. But she really went in and fought for it, and she called us back and said, everybody loves it, we're going to cut it. So that was just, and then they sat on it for a while, and it was CMA Fest. Man, it must be 3 years ago. From stage, Michael announced it as a single. I had no idea because Chris Lacey, my dear friend also over there, would not even tell me that was going to be the single. So I'm calling you out on a podcast. And I just looked over because Chris was actually standing there. I said, what? And she's like, yeah, it's going to be the first single. So that was awesome to see and struggle and see the fight. And
that went on to be awesome. A huge hit for Michael.
It was.
And for you.
It's been a beautiful song for my catalog. We've made a bunch of money. Thank you, BMI.
Yes.
They've sent me some very nice checks. And Michael. So that's one. And then we've had the artist pitches. Like I just mentioned, we have this Brantley Gilbert single coming out, and Bobby Penson and Blake had written it, and then Bobby's friends with Brantley, and Brantley heard it, and then and loved it, but had some tweaks on it, and just did this great. And then they got on it together and collaborated. It turned into this beautiful song that now is going to be his single. So. That's more of the artist. Yeah, thank you. That's more the artist because that happens because people ask about that. And that's artist collaboration works. I would say my company is still about 50-50. Like half of my songs are pitches. And then the other half are kind of artists, I would say, or inside songs, which is very vital and becoming more so, I think, because you ask. Like, it's hard. I've been doing this 20-something years now. And it's funny when I mention young pluggers, or I remember hanging out at the Red Door. That's a bar in town. I might be there more than I need to be sometimes.
I feel like a lot of publishing happens at the Red Door. Yeah. It comes up in multiple of these interviews.
The Midtown, a trifecta down there, winners, losers, rebar. That's just, because here's what I tell my wife is like, why do you always go there? Well, there's not as much face-to-face business as it used to be. It's just not. And when I started, there were 12 labels. There was a huge pitch sheet. There was 5 times as many acts going on. And getting cuts was not easier, but there was more.
Yeah.
I was probably knocking out between 20 and 30 cuts a year on my own, just pitching songs. That's not artist rights. That's just hustling songs. And but now it's more, you have to be more strategic, a little intentful, working A&R, working the artist, building more. I find myself building more direct relations with artists. Although I've always, over the years, you try to get with them when they're young so you can ride with them to the top. Like Luke Bryan used to ride our office with Bobby and Jason Aldean. I remember him. He did 1 million showcases in town. Those guys are still really nice to me, and that kind of thing. But that's what's hard is the non-face-to-face part with me. But I know my songs get heard. I email them a lot more than I used to. Used to get a new session or a new song and you go, hey, I want to come down and play it for them. Now they're like, well, just send it to me. Well, no, I want to play it for you.
You want to control the environment so you can give them the best experience.
I just like watching. I get excited. That's my favorite because I know this part of the question is coming. That's my favorite part still. I love when you get a song in and you know you place it with the right place and it gets cut. It's the best feeling in the world because you're like, yes, I know. I've even pitched songs that I don't know publishing on just because I knew it was the right song and gotten those cut in the last couple of years, which I've typically tried to do. I'd rather have the right song for the right artist as opposed to always own it. Because my old bosses have always wondered why I do that, but I'd rather have the rep of a guy that takes a good song.
You want the best record. You want to get the best shot because a higher tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
Publishing, and if you're in management too, live touring, everything.
My I guess reputation, I always want to be built on being a great song guy. Again, some of the people that I've watched over the years, from when Woody Bomar was doing it, and Pat Higdon and Gary and these guys, I've always wanted to go. I want to be that song guy. Higdon and Jeff Carlton, by far, I've mentioned them a couple times. Pat Higdon and Jeff. I just think they're great song guys. I still work with them both. I'm in a plugger group with them. And they have great ears. Yeah. And they've been doing it for 30-something years.
And that doesn't change. Even if a lot of what we're seeing now is the influence of a track in the Nashville songwriting community. But at the end of the day, it comes up consistently that it's great songs are great songs.
And there's an art form to it, a little more involved that I try to mentor any young people in. Is there is an art to not just hearing a hit song, going this hit song, but finding the right house and take it to the right people. And that's a skill.
Let me ask you something for some of our listeners who are new to publishing. I really do want to make this as conversational, but also as helpful to them. If you were to go back and see, Tim Hunze starting in the music industry, and you're making these connections with people who go on to be titans of the industry, is there any advice you would look at that guy right now and say, hey, you need to spend a little bit more time on?
Yeah. That's a tough one, man, because I take my lessons with me. People ask you that question. If you could go back in your life, would there be anything you change? And I would say probably not. I would network harder when I was younger. I think I got to that game a little later. And I'll explain. I worked for a company that had a lot of hit songwriters at the time, a great catalog, and it was pretty easy. So you can get insulated when that happens. And so there was a distinct moment when some of those changed. I've been bought and sold 4 or 5 different times. So then I learned, that's why I went, I need to really build some strong relationships, broader relationships in my business, not just A&R people. I really need to get to know, and producers. I need to get to know some of the agents and the managers and spread my wings. That's what I'd have told my younger self, is really focus more on some of the other parts of the business that you're not as familiar with. And that came a little later for me.
Kind of, it's bringing to mind the concept behind the leadership music program. And
that's a great example, actually. I went through the program a few years back. I'm trying to remember what year. I think 2013 was my date. But exactly that. Know all facets of the industry and understand it, because we're all answering to the same thing, which is, can this work? And when I mean that, will it make money for people? Because if it's not, no matter how great it is, I got drawers full of great music, I guess hard drives now, full of amazing music that no one's heard or will, or maybe mildly heard, but that happens. So you have to kind of know what, and saying that as well, what's a manager need? How can I help that side of the business, or what can I bring to an agent that's going to help him? And so the more you can educate yourself on all the facets of the business, it helps you make better decisions on your own on what you're going to sign and what you're going to do. Because I've had my passion projects, but at the end of the day, it's also a business, and you have to sign good business decisions as well.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to know the answer to this, but since we are in the digital age and so much of pitching is coming through your computer now, what is it when you open up your computer, when you leave this recording, what is the type of emails that you just dread getting?
Being 100% honest, usually from those people that you're trying to not set a co-write up with, that just keep coming at you, and and that's hard. I've learned to be really honest with people when somebody doesn't want to write. Typically more publisher to publisher, because I do appreciate that writers are creatives, and sometimes it's hard, but sometimes the writers just send the stuff to me and go, hey, I told them I'd do the write, but I'm going to have you book it. I don't want to do it. I hate those because it means I have to be the bad guy. Don't like those emails. Usually anything coming from an attorney makes me cringe a little bit.
That's actually what, if you reverse it to me, I'd be legal questions.
Yeah, which I'll also state, if you're a publisher getting into business and a young writer trying to get into business, find a great attorney. They are vital to what you do. They do cost a lot of money. But I've had the same great Denise Stevens, shout out to her. We've actually worked together about 12 or 15 years. She's been fantastic. But you got to find somebody to do that. But yeah, I don't like it. I know most of them. When you see their name in your inbox, like, oh, what is that?
Oh, it can't be good. It can't
or
be
pass
good.
emails. Hate pass emails.
Oh, no. Yeah, I know. I know. We have a corporate policy to delete them, so they're not even stuck in our inboxes.
Oh yeah,
We just
no, they don't sit around.
We don't let it even be in our space.
The ones that sit around are usually those co-writers I need to get back to that I haven't. Those are the ones that sit there longest, for sure.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of share a little bit of how you got here and how you approach being a successful publisher. I also want to mention that you're also on the AIMP board, and we're glad to have you. And this organization is better because so many different people with different takes and different experience are coming together trying to create a solid organization that's helpful for everybody. So I really appreciate you taking the time today and leaving us out of here. You know, I think one thing that is that comes up, and everybody's answer to this has been different, but if you've been a publisher in many different environments and had successes in a lot of different areas, what is it at the end of the day that makes you feel like I'm a successful music publisher and I can hang my hat on that?
I'll be honest, I don't think I'm successful yet. So I try to be
I'll tell you, you're successful.
So, yeah, you know what? What makes my day and makes me know is, like, for me, is working with a young writer or artist and helping them fulfill their dream. And so, again, like, going back for me, because he was one of my first ones I brought to the table as Bobby. And we worked together like 11 or 12 years and had astronomical success. I wasn't the only one involved in his career. Other people at the company were, but I brought him in, and that was a big deal to me. One of the first ones, Jeff says, yeah, let's do that. And then getting up on a BMI stage with him, or number one, doing the same with Lance Carpenter at Love You Like You Mean. That's his first number one. And the way this town is so small, just to share this one, because like the Kiss You in the Morning thing, because this town is so weird. I knew Michael White. We've known each other for 20 odd years because he co-wrote with a lot of my writers early on in my career. And but we never worked directly together. So when I bought that catalog, he came with it, and we got to work together, and I love him. And then the co-writer was Justin Wilson, who I gave his first publishing deal to, and I knew he'd be a hit writer. And to see him, that was his first number one at his third publishing deal at Magic Mustang. And to be on a stage with that, that's it to me. That means I did my job. And also knowing, because I would have loved to have this success with Justin at my company at the time, but to know that you were right, you go, I knew that guy had it, or that girl, or whoever, like that is the best feeling, because we all like to be right at the end of the day. But beyond that, for me, it's watching their dreams happen. Because they jokingly have a thing on my trash can that says Dream Crusher, because I am kind of direct, and I'm a little tough on writers sometimes. But honestly, that's what I love to do. To me, it's fulfilling whatever your dream is. So when you can see that happen and watch people get on stage, and you know, like Kelly Archer's having one of the best years, and I've known her forever, and it just makes, see, I don't publish her, but I'm there cheering. That was one of my favorite number one parties, being with her and watching that happen. That's fun stuff, man.
And I think you can hang your hat on that.
Yeah. But that's where I get my pride from, helping others. Helping others is awesome.
This Nashville AIMP Pubcast was brought to you by our friends at Anderson Benson Insurance, experienced, locally owned brokers who take a creative approach to simplifying insurance and risk management. These guys are relationship people, and they have the experience to understand all the aspects of our ever-changing industry. They prepare all their clients, including me, for their next level of success. I have all my insurance accounts with them, and Anderson Benson is an important part of my team. I have cell phone numbers if I have questions, and they're always available to help. Look them up at andersonbenson.com.